folks? John here, Altic Reforge. Welcome back. If it's your first time here, welcome. What's going on today? I'm down here in the workshop, and I got something pretty cool. What I got here is a little 66-pound cast steel anvil that can be purchased brand new on Amazon for under $3 a pound. So we're going to review this little baby real quick. So if you're looking to get into blacksmithing, one of the first big obstacles you're going to run into is you need an anvil. Now, it's worth mentioning that you don't necessarily have to have something that looks like what would traditionally be considered an anvil to forge metal. There's all kinds of creative workarounds out there. But if you've been around and you've shopped around, you know that buying new can be a pretty big investment. And if you want to go the antique route, the market is all over the place. You have people asking $7 or $8 a pound, sometimes higher than new prices for beat up chunks of crap. So that's why when this guy first came on the scene at the price it was, and claiming to be cast steel, which is something you wouldn't see in such an inexpensive anvil. Most low-end anvils are made of soft cast iron and, you know, aren't really marketed to be users. But when this guy first came on the scene, a lot of people just turned their nose up at it, didn't give it a second thought. But a few people here and there started to take the chance on it, and reviews started to come in, and I've been wanting to get my hands on one ever since. Now, I did not purchase this anvil new. This came from a buddy of mine who had bought it, decided the hobby wasn't for him, was looking to get rid of it, so we agreed on a price we thought was fair, and now I got it here in the workshop. So let's take a closer look at this little baby. Let's give it the old ball bearing test. I can tell immediately that that's not cast iron. Cast iron makes a very dull thud and has very little bounce to it. That's got a little bit of a ring to it, and it's got maybe a good 65–70% rebound, so this is definitely cast steel. If you're unfamiliar with the ball bearing test, it's pretty simple. You just take you a hardened steel ball bearing, doesn't really matter what size, and you just drop it on the anvil and catch it. Whatever amount it bounces back up of the distance it was dropped is about your percentage of rebound. So say you drop that guy from 10%, or not 10%, 10 inches, and it bounces back up 7 inches, you got 70% rebound. And all this is just a ballpark measurement of how hard the face of the anvil is and how well it's going to help move your material. It doesn't have anything to do with lifting the hammer back up for you or anything like that. But basically, an anvil with better rebound is going to reflect the energy of your blow back into your work better and move the steel ever so slightly easier. But there's that. So what I've done here, this anvil is marketed as being 52 Rockwell hardness, so I've taken my Rockwell files. We got a 45, a 50, and a 55 HRC. 45 doesn't really leave a mark. The 50 scratches up the surface a little bit, but doesn't really cut it. The 55 is starting to cut it, so I would place this thing right around 52 Rockwell. So, something that's kind of interesting. Right here, I got a 40 Rockwell file. Skates on the face, doesn't leave a mark. But over here on the horn, so this horn is dead soft. So, that kind of makes me wonder how deep the hardening of the face actually goes. On really high-end cast steel anvils, the entire anvil will be hardened, but it looks like they only harden the face. And as you can see, there's some forging marks, which isn't really uncommon in most anvils. Like, I've dented Peter Wrights and Haybuds before. If you miss-hit full swing with a poorly dressed hammer, you can leave a mark in the face of most anvils. So that doesn't surprise me, but it does, like I said, it just kind of makes me wonder how deep the hardening actually goes. So that's why I'm not going to take a flap disc or anything and try to clean this up any, because I don't want to expose soft steel. But looking at the quality of the casting, we can see it's pretty poor. There's some casting flaws on the horn. The surface finish of the horn's pretty rough. They probably cast these in one big block, and then they got some kid in a sweatshop with a grinder doing this. But there's some flaws in the casting right there, right around there, which doesn't surprise me. This is probably cast into a really rough mold, and they're probably cutting corners everywhere they can to keep costs down, so that doesn't surprise me at all. Wouldn't surprise me if you took a wire wheel of this thing and you found some voids that were full of Bondo and painted over. But all in all, it appears pretty solid. Now, before we do any work with it, we do need to round over. Whenever you get a new anvil, you need to dress up about the front 4 inches of each edge into about a 3/8 inch radius so they can be used for fullering. Right now, they're way too sharp. Hardy hole's way too sharp. That's way too sharp. That Pritchell hole being where it is pretty useless because the horn is kind of set below everything else, so there's really nothing supporting whatever you're punching through around here. It's not flat. So if this was the only anvil I had to work on, I would make a bolster plate. But before we go any further, we're going to round up those corners right there. We're going to round up these corners right here because sometimes it is useful to be able to use that part of the anvil. And we're going to go ahead and chamfer that real good. So here's kind of what I was talking about. I've picked at this with a scratch awl, and you see how there's that filler material in there. You know, listen to that versus that. You know that's pretty common with you know, anvils made in China, like your Harbor Freight anvils with the cast iron. You see stuff like that pretty often, which doesn't surprise me. They have quality control standards that are pretty relaxed. So as long as, like, if the void isn't damaging the structural integrity of the anvil, they'll fill it in and then paint over it rather than just tossing the whole anvil. Like I said, they're trying to cut corners everywhere they can to keep price down, so that doesn't surprise me at all. You know, it's nothing structural. It's purely a cosmetic issue, but anyway, if you decide to spring for one of these, you're probably going to get what you get and don't throw a fit type deal. So, I've just gone over this side and checked for voids like I did on the other side. Didn't find any over here. So overall, the quality of the casting, while not excellent, it is solid. So I wouldn't be worried about breaking this thing in half or anything crazy like that. So let's get it mounted up and do some work with it. So there we go. Got nice fullering edges at the front of the anvil. Went ahead and rounded this off. You don't really want super sharp corners that can chip anywhere on the anvil, so we dressed up the Pridgel, dressed up the Hardy with the die grinder and a carbide burr. If you don't have one of those, or an angle grinder for that matter, a round file will accomplish all these same tasks, you know, relatively quickly. If you don't know, round files are actually, they're a good bit harder than regular files because they're made to sharpen chainsaw teeth. So, you know, if you don't have a grinder, you're just starting out, a round file will take care of it. This baby pulled off of here. This thing is so cool. Got a real nice ring to it too. So wrap some chain around the waist and put a magnet up under the heel. Help quiet the ring. Some sounds a little more manageable now, but I'm not going to bother actually mounting it to the stump because I'm probably just going to make a few little things and kind of get the feel of it. So let's see what she's got. So quick note, obviously this anvil's way too low for me. Proper anvil height is if you stand and let your fist hang relaxed by your side. Knuckle height is where you want it. So this is way too low. That's okay, I'm only doing a little bit of work with it. Also, I'm using a 3-pound hammer, which some people will say is too heavy for this size of anvil. Some say the proper ratio is 40-to-1 anvil to hammer. Others say it's 20-to-1, blah, blah, blah. I've heard 25 for every 5 pounds. I've heard it's all over the place. So just use whatever anvil you got with whatever hammer you want, and chances are it's going to be okay. If you ask 10 people, you're going to get 12 different answers. But let's see what this little guy has to say for himself. So what we got here, just a scrap chunk of 1/2-inch square. Just make us a little leaf wall hook or something simple. Just use the edge, isolate the material for a leaf. Give the horn a go, do a little bit of drawing out. That ain't bad. Turn that up a little bit. Then we'll do a couple of set downs. One on the far side, one on the near side, and then we'll flatten that out to make the bit with the holes that you screw to the wall. So just work those set downs in where you want them. One thing I do really like about this little guy is it's got the tapered heel. I've always preferred the double horn style. I just think it's more useful. For example, we got to get in here and flatten this out. Face of the anvil's too wide, and if you try to do it from this side, you risk accidentally hitting on the top or bottom and marring up your surface finish. So the tapered heel, come at it from the back side. That's really useful for getting into tight spaces like that. Do some drawing out over the edge. This is actually the fastest way to draw out. It just takes practice to get used to. But that's why the front 4 inches or so should have that nice you know, 3/8 or so radius. Go ahead and cut off the excess, so now I'll just dress up that taper. Forge out the leaf. A little cross peening. Another reason we chamfered this corner up here is because when you're forging something down really thin, like a knife bevel, or maybe like the side of a leaf, it's beneficial to be able to kind of come at it at an angle. And you know, if you didn't have a good corner to do that off of, you'd have to make an anvil block to get it up off of the face, but you know, there's that. Then we'll come into the flat bit with a little ball peen, make a couple of countersinks, just so the screws will sit flush when it's done. Just bend everything where it needs to go. This thing handled that pretty well, so now we're going to do something a little more abusive and make a cutoff already for it. So what I got here is a piece of 1-inch round 1045. Just start by forging out a square taper. Till it'll fit in the hardy hole. So we got our taper. We'll drop this baby in the hardy hole, straight from the top. And that'll upset and give us a nice shoulder down here. Once you got a nice shoulder established, you're basically just going to flatten it out from the front, make it into a blade. Just keep thinning that edge down. So, just this little guy inside, cleaned it up, thinned it out a little, threw a quick edge on it. Let's see if it works. Not bad. So here's a look at the anvil after doing all that work. Edges held up fine, there's no damage. The face is still nice and smooth. You know, there's no marks there that weren't there before. Hardy hole's still looking good, so all in all, I'd say she did good. So here's just a quick look at that little hook we made. Looks pretty good. I haven't drilled the holes yet or finished it or anything, but I mostly just wanted to show the forging process. So my thoughts on this little guy after giving a little bit of use and looking it over it real good. I'm impressed. It's got a lot going for it. One thing I do kind of like about it is the small size. You know, say if you don't really have a dedicated shop, you got to pull everything out every time you want to forge and then put it all back when you're done. This little guy's going to be great for that. You know, it's fully serviceable. It's an anvil. And you know, if you were just looking to do small stuff for the house here and there, this could realistically be the only anvil you ever need. You know, of course, once you get one anvil, you're going to want another one, but that's neither here nor there. And even if you were looking to get into blacksmithing as kind of like a side business, this is a good starter option that'll get your foot in the door. This is far superior to a Harbor Freight anvil or a piece of railroad track. I've used both of those, so I can say that with complete and total confidence. So that, like I said, honestly, I'm impressed with the little guy. So I'm going to keep it around, let it kick around the shop. I'm sure he'll find his place. But, you know, starting out, I don't think there's a better option on the market for the money. I really don't. So it's worth mentioning that deals on antique anvils are out there. I have bought several really nice anvils for under $1 a pound before, but deals like that are few and far between. And if you want to find something like that, you need to be checking Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace about every 10 minutes or so, because once they come up, they're gone, like right away. So, you know, there's that. if you're dead set on finding your dream antique anvil, you know, more power to you. Go for it. Ain't nothing in the world wrong with that. But if you just want one, you want one that's going to work, and you want it now, you really can't beat this little guy. So, like I said, I'm pretty impressed. Now, if you've been around the blacksmithing community, you know there's no shortage of the old curmudgeons who are going to, you know, tell you you're stupid and anything made after 1900 was trash because men were men and things were made better and this, that, and the other. But, I respectfully disagree. That's just my opinion. But that's all I got for you. If you like what you saw, like, share, subscribe, all that jazz. Always more cool stuff coming. There's links to the Etsy if you want to purchase any of my work, Patreon if you want to support the channel, and links to the social media if you want to follow me. Also, big thanks to my buddy Dan Bailey for the new intro. But that's all I got for you, and y'all take care.